My dead men shall live, together with my dead bodies shall they arise.
John chapter 5 speaks of two resurrections, of the spiritual resurrection. Did I say John? Yeah, I did say John, okay. And some people find this passage very difficult. And I used to find, the funny thing is I found it difficult too, but now I realized it's obvious contextually what Jesus is talking about. For as the Father raiseth up the dead, and quickeneth them, even so the Son quickeneth whom he will. For the Father judgeth no man, but hath committed all judgment to the Son, that all men should honor the Son, even as they honor the Father. He that honoreth the Son honoreth not the Father, not the Son honoreth not the Father, which hath sent him. Verily, verily, I say unto you, he that heareth my word, and believeth on him that sent me, hath everlasting life, and shall not come into condemnation, but is passed from death to life. It means you've already been raised in a sense. You've passed from death to life. You are alive. You cannot be condemned. Verily I say to you, the hour is coming, and now is, and it's coming for some, it now is even now, that when the dead, and he means spiritually in this part, shall hear the voice of the Son of God, and they that hear shall live. Notice, the dead, some will hear, others will not. And those that hear his voice will live. Because he that heareth my word and believeth on him that sent me hath everlasting life. And so by hearing the word of Jesus Christ, I now have everlasting life, and I live, though I be dead in trespasses and sins. He is acknowledging that aspect of death, the symbolic death, the spiritual death, if you will. But then he goes on, and he says, for as the Father hath life in himself, so also shall he give, so hath he given to the Son to have life in himself, and hath given him authority to execute judgment also, because he is the Son of Man. Marvel not at this, it is authority for judgment, for the hour is coming in the which all that are in the graves shall hear his voice. Again, now that's not speaking spiritually, because it's not according to who hears. Spiritually speaking, those that hear the voice of God, those who have eyes to see and ears to hear, and who heed the gospel's call, they have everlasting life in them, and they live. Though they be dead, they are alive. God is God of the living, not of the dead. Because those who are alive in Christ, though they be dead, in the sight of God they are alive, because the promise of resurrection is true. They shall rise. And therefore, because God reckons them alive, they shall live again and forevermore. But the hour is coming when all that are in their graves, the entire class, you know what I mean? All that are in their graves shall hear his voice. And notice he says, in their graves, not dead. So there be no ambiguity between spiritual death and actual death. He says, all that are in their graves shall hear his voice. The voice of the Son of God. Oh, I'm sorry, I went back. That was verse 25. Verse 26, all that are in their graves shall hear his voice and shall come forth. Notice, he speaks of a physical coming forth out of the grave, as opposed to shall live, which can be ambiguous because we can live spiritually. Though we are alive physically, we may be dead spiritually. Though we be dead physically, we may be alive spiritually. We can be. That's why God is God of the living, not of the dead, because he is alive of those who, through the Spirit of God, have the promise of everlasting life. And therefore, because God is today, yesterday, and forever, inhabits eternity, we already exist with him in the future from his perspective. We are already alive with him in the resurrection from his perspective, which we cannot possibly adopt, which is beyond our ability to, we could talk about it theoretically with language, but we have no ability to mentally visualize or to put ourselves in the position of one who sees now, yesterday, and forever, as though it is all present and accounted for in the immediate. Marvel not at this, for the hour is coming in which all that are in their graves shall hear his voice and shall come forth, they that have done good to the resurrection of life, and they that have done evil to the resurrection of damnation. There is a judgment for those who have those who have passed from death to life. Notice they are just to the resurrection of life. Damnation means judgment or condemnation. We cannot come into condemnation through our faith in Christ. If your faith was in vain, you might come into condemnation because you've been trifling with God. But those with genuine trust in the Lord, and I don't know how to quantify exactly what separates those who fall away from those who are faithful. But I know that the grace of God and his mercy towards us plays the biggest role of any other. There's no other factor which factors in quite as importantly as God's will for us.
Awake and sing. It is well in the dust, for thy dew is as the dew of herbs, and the earth shall cast out the rough iron. Come, my people, enter into the